Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monday Night Nonfiction Book Club. And gosh, I'm so happy you all are here. Things are really getting kind of spooky. But let's get in here. I saw Scott Hummer was once again the first one. Thank you for being here, Scott. Phreoxerus, Patty's Garden. Let me see who else. Utah Mike. Um, Saw Suzanne Goulet later on in here. Cats and Prepping. Little Lone Prepper. Wow, look at all these great people. Um, yeah, there's Suzanne Goulet. And I think that Sumi is going to be joining us here momentarily. And well, thank you, you two, reading my minds. You know, we're not married. You're not authorized to read my minds. You know, but thank you, thank you. That's a very kind thing to let me know that you can hear me and see me. Yeah, it has been something else. Mark Merrill, good evening. Mark is a disaster preparedness guy. I believe you're in North Carolina. Is that right, Mark? And he is on a fantastic Facebook group with me called Prepping for the Long Term. And Heather is the owner of that site. And it's a great site. They just went over 20,000 members. And so I would like to strongly recommend, if you're looking for a Facebook group, it's a great group to be in. And Mark has all kinds of experience across the board, and military, law enforcement, as well as emergency services. And so county disaster response, county disaster services. So, gosh, welcome. Good to see you, my friend. Let me see. Anybody else new? No. Okay. So we're going to finish up one fantastic book, and then we're going to get into another. We're finishing up the last 3 chapters tonight of Surviving the Coming War, a guide to wartime for survival for civilians. I'm tempted to go a little bit out of order because I think that if we do the very last chapter, and then it'll make the next two, the next to the last and the second to the last chapters make a lot more sense. But I may do them in order. I'm still debating in my own mind how we want to do that. This one is his same author, 150 Survival Secrets. And so it's just little 1 or 2 page secrets for each one. I think we can probably get through about 8 to 10 of these a week. So we could probably do this book in about 15 weeks, I'm going to guess. But they're very simple. No complexity to it, just great little tips. That, as a matter of fact, I'm thinking about using this to fill in the gaps. I just did preparedness tip number 166 in my shorts. So I put out 166 short tips so far. And the one I just put out was consider a pistol caliber carbine if you don't have a tool, a defense tool, and you are short on money because basically what you can do is you can have 1 caliber of ammunition. If you plan it right, you can get 1 long rifle as well as 1 sidearm that use the same magazines, same ammunition. Now, disadvantage, to be totally honest with you, they are not going to have the range of, say, an AR-15. The AR-15 has a what they call a point maximum effective range. That's against a single target, like a human, of about 600 meters, which is about 600 yards. Against an area target, they say 800 yards. So that means that's your spray and pray type of a target. Whereas you get a pistol caliber carbine, you'll be lucky to hit anything after 100 yards. So about 100 meters. So there's advantages and disadvantages and everything. I keep telling you guys, no matter what it is you choose to do in preparedness, for every advantage, you're giving up something somewhere else. There is a disadvantage. So, the advantage of having the same magazine, same ammunition, the disadvantage is you're using a pistol caliber. And so that's not going to have the same range or effectiveness as a rifle caliber. Okay, so, just one of those decisions you have to kind of make. Recondo Survival Ops. Thank you, Mark, for that. And I'm thinking on using these as a guideline to put out more of my survival tips. Right now, it just came in. Amazon delivered it 5 minutes ago. I ordered a small outdoor camping table. What my plans are right now, in my last Prepper Pantry haul, I told you all that I am really concerned about the availability of fuel. Here in Central Texas, cedar, live oak, mesquite, that's about it. Not that much of it. When you live in a suburban area like I do, there's not a whole bunch of that. So curing wood, especially, we aren't going to be able to cut the tree down and cure it, and use it immediately. So it's going to be a 1-year process. So as I take a look at fuel, whether that be combustible liquids or whether that be charcoal or firewood that you buy, the one handle thing at outside of Walmart when you're there, fuel for cooking is going to be extremely precious to us in a post-apocalyptic world. And so the more efficient you can be in cooking and heating, the better off you're going to be. And that's why I've been investigating a lot of the stuff, the wok, the hibachi, different foods that the Asians use, because in the steppes of China, there was nothing to burn other than cow dung and grass. So a lot of that's going to become extremely important in a post-apocalyptic world. So that's why I'm studying Chinese cookery. Same thing with the Mexican cooking. The Mexicans in the desert Southwest, not that much fuel available to them, a bunch of mesquite and things like that. But yeah, I mean, fuel becomes very precious. So I'm going to encourage you to take a look at that. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and use these 150 survival tips, not only for us to review on a weekly basis, but also me to give you more prepper tip short videos that we'll be working on here in the near future. Okay, let me see. Has anybody else? Mountain Survival 1. Hello, good evening. Welcome. Good to see you. Or is that Mark? Mark, is that you, Mountain Survival 1 as well? Or is that two different things, or is that a separate person? Forgive my coughing. Okay. We have another guy who's really into mountain rescue and survival and all that kinds of stuff. So I thought maybe that you were one of his companies. So thank you for clarifying that, Mountain Survival 1. Good to see you. Welcome to the group. Let's talk about let's go ahead and do it in order. Chapter 28, Wartime Survival Gear and Supplies. So on that Facebook channel I told you about, Prepping for the Long Term, a woman asked, I'm going to build my bug out bag. What should I have in it? All kinds of people started answering all kinds of things. And to me, that's the Dunning-Kruger effect. And so look up Dunning-Kruger, Dunning-Kruger, Kruger. What Doctors Dunning and Kruger said back in 1998, 1999, right at the turn of the millennium, was that people who don't know that much about a subject think of themselves as experts and offer all kinds of advice. Whereas people who are experts, will say, well, you might want to consider this, you might want to consider this, and these are some things you need to take into consideration. I was talking with another friend of mine today, and I said, why is it that we as preppers, when somebody asks us a question, we don't just answer the question? So I said, what do I need in my bug out bag? And another person asked, what do I need in my first aid kit? And they said, well, you need to take this class, you need to take that class, and you need to do this. That's not the question they asked. They asked, what do I need in my first aid kit? All too often, what we do is we just offer our opinion, okay? But with the bug out bag, instead of answering the question immediately, I said, well, I need a little bit more information. Like, are you bugging out to a FEMA camp? Are you bugging out to a relative's home, to an established location? How long will it take you? Is this in an arid area like the Utah, Arizona? Is it semi-arid like Central Texas? Are you in a land of 10,000 lakes like Minnesota? What is your overall natural environment? What are your seasons? And is there a particular season you want to plan for? And how far are you going to have to go? And what kind of physical shape are you in? So those are the kinds of questions that I would have to ask in order and get those answers back in order to offer some sort of a semblance of a worthwhile answer to what do I need in my bug out bag. Because if I told her what I'm using here in Central Texas, uh, where we might have 95 days over 100 degrees each year, but less than 20 days lower than 40 a year, that probably is not going to be appropriate for somebody who lives in Minnesota or Wisconsin or even Illinois. So a lot of things we have to ask questions on in order to give better answers. So one of the things I want to encourage you to do is when people ask you for a question on what should I do, get a little bit more information about what it is that they really need and the things that are appropriate for that area. So he talks about his everyday carry and having a pocket knife. As a matter of fact, I just found the pocket knife I used to carry. It's a Schrade SCHF 53, and I lost it. We had one of our group meetings was held at a house, and we always clear and put our weapons on a table. And I think in the process of doing that, I knocked my knife out of my pocket. It was on a clip in my pocket, and it fell in the couch. I lost it and had to buy another one. And then I started carrying this Buck Revell, and I really like the lighter weight of the Buck Revell in comparison to the Schrade. But anyhow, I found my Schrade, and man, I was really happy today. So carry a pocket knife, your cell phone, of course, a miniature flashlight. I had an O-light, but the bad thing about that O-light that I carried, and I just replaced it. So here's what I carry now. I carry a Nebo. But the O-light that I had fit on my key ring, but unfortunately the end unscrewed, and I lost parts of the guts of it, and so I had to replace that. A whistle, and the best thing you can get, and you get 10 of them for like $5, lifeboat whistle. You can get it on Amazon. Just get a lifeboat whistle, and it's designed to go a larger range, so I strongly recommend that you consider that. Get an N95 folding respirator. So that's going to be basically a little bit tougher to breathe through. Remember, the finer the mesh, the more difficult it is to suck air in through it. And that's what you want. You want it to be difficult to suck air in because you're filtering all the bad stuff out. Whereas a surgical mask is easier to breathe through, but then again, you're not getting that much protection. You're only getting protection basically against liquids or against aerosols. A fire starter of some sort. Most people just carry a Bic or a Zippo, one or the other. In my EDC bag, I carry both a Zippo and a Bic. A bandana, I would say more than one bandana. One of the things, there are two items in my first aid kit that I just cannot get enough of. And you saw it in my Pepper Pantry haul from Saturday. I try to pick up extra 4x4 gauze or a roll of gauze, because that's what you're going to use basically to pack a wound. You're going to use the rolled gauze. And that's a fantastic wound packing device for a very deep, very productive bleeding wound. That's the pressure you're going to want. You want to stuff that entire roll of gauze inside that wound. You don't have enough rolled gauze, you don't have enough 4x4s, and you don't have enough triangular bandages. A bandana can be turned into a triangular bandage. So, make sure you have plenty of those. You're going to go through those like you would not believe. And Band-Aids, the little bitty boo-boos. Yeah, I can't believe it. I was helping one of the flood victims trying to find a trailer. And so we went to look at this one trailer that she was considering moving into, and the lady had a Great Dane, and the Great Dane came up and just clawed the living daylights out of my arm. I forget which one it was. I think it was this arm. And I went back to my first aid kit in my truck, and I'd used up all my Band-Aids. And so all I had were Telfa pads, and I had to put some 4x4 Telfa pads on it instead of a Band-Aid. But don't forget the boo-boo kits, the little Band-Aids. And a defense device. So I carry 3 defense devices. And actually, I'll show you that here just real quick. So in my right-hand pocket, I keep my Buck Revell. And then in my left-hand pocket, and this is not used for anything, so that it's always kept extremely sharp. My Revell is used for everyday use. This is only used for one thing, and that's to cut through clothes. So this is a Rat 2 from Ontario Knife Company. And do I have my, let me see, is it up here? Yeah, there it is. There's my Schrade. So I also study American cane fighting. So I carry a fighting cane, that's number 2. And then I have a concealed carry, and that's my Smith & Wesson M&P shield. So this is the Schrade SCHF 42. Just a great knife. I mean, this is just phenomenal. But anyhow, so you want to make sure you have some sort of a defense tool. Like I said, I have folding knives. I have my cane, and then I have my Smith & Wesson. So those are some of the things you might want to consider. Oh, Triple G Farms, good evening, Pete. Good to see you. Yes, you can. Thank you. Good point. You can use your FSA or your HSA, so flex spending account or health savings account, to purchase first aid supplies. That is very true. Thank you for that reminder. Shenanigans is going to be watching TV, but listening. Okay, that's great. Kane Corso, good evening. Good to see you as well. So what do we have now? We're up to 18 people with 9 likes. Fantastic. Thank you, people. So everyday carry level 2, they recommend a multi-2. I have a one of those blue shopping bags from our local grocery store, and in that I keep a lot of my everyday carry. So when I go to work, when I was working, that would go inside the building with me, and inside that I had a multi-tool and several other things. A rain poncho. I have one of those little cheap $1 rain ponchos. Actually, I have 2 of those. I made a nuclear fallout PPE, and I keep it in a quart Ziploc. And there's one for each seat in my pickup, one for each seat in Helen's car. And each one of those has one of those $1 disposable ponchos. And so that's what I want it for, is I'm going to put that poncho on to keep any fallout from getting embedded in my clothing or on my skin. And then when I get to the point where I'm going to decontaminate, I can just cut that off, throw it away, and it's nothing lost. So carry plenty of those little disposable ponchos. They can be very, very beneficial to you. A tourniquet. So yes, carry a tourniquet, and not only carry a tourniquet, but carry it so that it's staged and ready for use. If it's still inside the container and you got to rip the plastic container open and everything, there's nothing on a tourniquet that needs to be sterile, okay? If you're going to have that wound packed and dressed, that's going to be with sterile things. Tourniquet is going to be away from that wound itself, and so don't worry about it being sterile. Worry about it being immediately accessible and usable. And another thing is practice. Practice using it. You're going to be surprised if you practice on yourself, and you won't be able to stop the blood flow because it'll get to the point where you can't take the pain because of the pressure that's being put on your body. And when that happens, you need to go 2 or 3 more cranks. And that's going to stop the arterial blood flow. Remember that the arteries are very deep in your body. The veins are a little bit closer to the surface. Of course, the capillaries are closest to the surface of the skin. But in order to stop that blood flow, you got to get very, very deep. It's one of the great things I really love about the Israeli pressure tourniquet, the Israeli bandage, is that does have a pressure device built into it. Hello, Kaylin Strain, good evening. Good to see you. Yeah, I just got done with the Zoom meeting too. Our St. Vincent de Paul has one in-person meeting per month on Monday evenings, and then a Zoom meeting. And so as a matter of fact, when we do the Zoom, I'm able to stay because they close at 8. It's from 6:30 to 8, and then I leave at 6:45. However, if we meet in person, I have to leave at 7:30. Okay. A larger flashlight, water purification, hand sanitizer, and of course, he says the firearm. Everyday carry level 3, heavy duty poncho, rescue blanket, eye protection, that's in that bag, those little quart bags that I have for the um, NBC PPE is what I call it, CBR, chemical, biological, radiological. NBC is nuclear, biological, chemical. I believe now that I think now it's called CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear. But you want to have the goggles because you don't want to get any radioactive fallout into your into any of your pores. And your eyes, of course, are going to be open liquid pores that you don't want to get any contamination into. Energy bars, a water bottle, absolutely. Make sure you always have at least 1 liter of water with you. A multi-band radio, yes, I agree. Primarily, you're going to be listening to AM, FM. So that's going to be your local broadcast stations, radio broadcast stations. If they aren't working, then you might want to check into NOAA. And then, of course, shortwave down at the very lower end of that. Either a monocular or binocular, and then a tactical flashlight. And then make your first aid kit and your firearm. Now, let's talk about first aid kits here for something. I just want to make sure everybody understands the philosophy behind it. So a first aid kit is something you keep that you're going to use for somebody else, okay? And that's the definition of a first aid kit. You're going to use it. You could use it for yourself. It's going to primarily be for somebody else. An IFAK is an individual first aid kit. I recommend, and this is just from my experience in the Army, we had the same individual first aid kit. We wore it upside down on our load-bearing equipment, our LBE, and so that way you could reach up and pull on it and everything would fall out if you're standing up. But think about the logic of this. If you are lying down injured and somebody's is at your torso administering first aid, then that's where they're going to naturally pull and all the contents come out so that they can administer first aid to you. So in the military, the IFAK, the individual first aid kit, is for other people to use on you, okay? So the first aid kit that I wear is not for me to use on another soldier. It's for whoever's giving me first aid to use to give first aid to me. So that being said, you would want to make sure that the other person giving the first aid knows all the contents in your first aid kit. So if that's the case, then one of the things I want to strongly recommend, and it's a requirement in our group, is that everybody have the exact same IFAK. Because that way, as you become more and more familiar with the contents of your own first aid kit, you're becoming more and more familiar with the contents of the other person's first aid kit, because they're going to be exactly the same. And you don't want to change any locations or anything else. Keep them factory the way they are, unless you're going to build your own and standardize it across the board. And you want to make sure that everybody knows exactly where everything is so that they can get it and administer first aid to you as quickly as possible. Let me check up here. It all depends, Caitlin. So like I think I've said it before. My back patio, I have some tarping, and so 2 walls are brick, and then of course 2 are open to the public. I have some tarp that I can pour down on that. The corner over here is the lowest point, so that's where I'm going to put my decontamination shower. So I'm going to put the tarps down. You come in. The first thing you do is, as you enter into the porch, you're going to take all your clothing off. You're going to take your poncho off. You're going to take your goggles. The last things to go are going to be your gloves, your goggles, and your face mask. But then when you take those off, they're all going to go into a 55-gallon drum. It stays inside that 55-gallon drum so that you're not stirring any dust up, okay? We want to keep it all sterile inside there. Now you're down to basically your clothing and your underclothing. So next thing you're going to do is you're going to take off your clothing, and it's going to go in a different pile. Then you're going to be there in your underclothing only. You're going to take a decontamination shower. That's going to be rather cool water. You don't want warm water. You want cool water because the warmer the water, the more it opens your pores. We're trying to protect your pores from radioactive fallout dust. So if you're going to open those pores up with warm water, it just gives it an opportunity to get inside. You want to keep it a little bit on the cool side so that those pores stay shut, and then you rinse that off. Do not scrub. Rinse only. Take the hose and it rinses off. I have a battery-operated shower head. We're going to have a 5-gallon bucket of water. Everybody gets 5 gallons of water to decontaminate themselves. Once that's done, that's in that corner where it has a natural fall off, and all that's going to go out into the yard. Then you're going to proceed on around, pat yourself dry with some towels that we have over here in this corner, and then you can come inside the house, okay? And then you can put on some different clothes. But you can probably do the same thing inside your building, inside your apartment building. At least get rid of that outer layer of contaminated clothing, and walk the halls of your apartment complex in your underwear. I would rather do that and live than carry contaminated radioactive fallout into my apartment. So make sure you just get rid of your outer layers of clothing and that outer layer of poncho before you get into your apartment. So that would be my recommendation there. Then you can go straight to your shower if you want to and shower there. Just follow that same principle. Cool water, make sure it all drains down. Don't scrub, just rinse, and then pat dry. Okay. Wartime emergency funds. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later because it's one of the biggest problems I see with preparedness-minded people right now today is that we only focus on one point in one timeline of one event. And when we do that, we lose focus of everything else. And so you'll hear people with this nonsensical thing saying, I can't eat silver or gold. That's true. Can't eat a knife, can't eat a poncho. There's lots of things you can't eat. So besides the nonsense of saying can't eat it, therefore it has no value, it may not have value the first day of an event. It may have value at the end of the first year. It's definitely going to have value by the end of the second or third year, okay? Just think that timeline out. Don't get caught up in one point in the timeline of an event because it's going to, over time, it's going to build itself. That's one thing I really like about A. American's series, the Survivalist series, is, he's talking about the natural reoccurrence of black markets and then markets and how people are trading different things. And I think that's a far more realistic impression, in my opinion, of how things are going to develop than you're going to magically find somebody with antibiotics who is willing to trade for the 52 Bic lighters that you have saved up that somebody said was going to be as precious as gold in time of an emergency. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think that requires way too much luck. Evacuation survival packs. So he talks about basically your get home pack, your bug out bag, and then your I'm never coming home bag. He gives all kinds of lists of things that he thinks are definitely advantageous to have into it. Great list. And in case you didn't get enough of it, he's got an even better list back here in the appendices. So there's two different lists, both of them phenomenal. He calls his I'm never coming home a long-term bag. Then he talks about if you're going to hunker down, what do you need to have in your home? And so he talks about all the different tools. There are lists of great tools that you need to have. Water purification processes, food. He gives a list of minimums that you should have as far as food. Now, there's just one thing I want to remind you of, and he primarily does long-term storage, dry goods. Okay, I want to add to that just a little bit. I like to have a 50-50. So I have all kinds of dry, long-term, nutrient survival, Thrive Life, Algerson Farms, rainy day foods. I have a lot of it. But remember, everything has an advantage and it has a disadvantage. The disadvantage to having long-term storage dry goods is that you have to have lots of water to reconstitute them. So yeah, you can store a lot. It can last a long time, but make sure you have adequate supply of water to rehydrate them and to cook them. Okay. On the other hand, I have 50% canned goods. So I think you saw it in my pantry haul last weekend. I got 3 cans of beans, 1 can of lima beans, 1 can of navy beans, and 1 can of, what's the other white bean? Anyhow, I got 3 cans of white beans. Why? They're pre-cooked. They're stored in water. All you have to do is warm them up. Okay. So you don't have to have a whole bunch of fuel to warm them up. You can eat them just straight out of the can. They're already hydrated. And there's extra hydration in them that you don't have to pour out if you don't want to. So, just think. Now, they are heavier, they are bulkier, and so, and they don't have the same shelf life. However, they can have the same shelf life if you take care of them. And, watch for bulging of the cans, watch for rust on the edges, make sure that you don't have them dented, keep them in a cool, dry place. Don't let them get subject to, like putting out in the garage where they're going to have extremes of heat and cold, all those different kinds of things, okay? So make sure you understand advantage, disadvantage. Make sure you have fire protection, amen. The 2 things that scare me the worst, whether or not my neighbor is going to be able to contain all of their sewage, because that's going to be a disease causer like you would not believe. And the other one's going to be without a fire department and people relying on cooking outdoors, people relying on indoor heating that's not part of their electrical heating system. There's going to be all kinds of rampant fires. Fires scare me. That's why you'll see a fire extinguisher in every room in my house. And there's I make all kinds of provisions for fighting fires. That's my 2 biggest fears, poop and fire. Self-defense, that's another one of my big fears. I just ordered another 2, and they're due in tomorrow, the 12-gauge triple arms. Now, you can go to Fifth, F-I-T-H, I think it's .com, and they sell CS. So what you can do is you can get a 12-gauge shotgun shell that's basically tear gas. So you can make one of those triple arms into a tear gas system. They've also got, you can use a standard double-aught buck. They have some flashbangs. They have all kinds of different types of shells that you can put into these perimeter alarms. I'm going to have perimeter alarms over the place like you would not believe. They're going to be double and triple deep because people are going to think that once they set one off, it's going to be clear and they can come on in. No, they're going to encounter a second and even a third layer of defense systems before they can get anywhere close to my house. He gives a list of what he recommends for a first aid kit. Okay, so that's basically that chapter. The one thing that Mr. Jones came up with, that he is the author of, the creator of, and I just think this is, if anything else, do a Google search for James Jones 10 Principles of Survival. And this is the next chapter, chapter 29. He says, anticipate the development of the situation around you, like what's going on right now in the Caribbean with Venezuela. China told the Philippines and the United States to back off, that we are in their long historic territorial waters, and they will defend them if necessary. We've got the escalation of things, continuing escalation of things, and long-range strikes by Ukraine into Russia. We've got a possible revolution starting in Mexico. There's all kinds of things. The dollar is collapsing. There's all kinds of things that are happening you've got to be aware of. And so you have to be able to anticipate what's going to happen next. You know what I'm anticipating? The continuing resolution that just had the longest shutdown of the U.S. government in the history of the U.S., okay, is only funded through the end of January. You have less than 77 days until we're going to go to another shutdown. Start making plans on that now. Anticipate, okay? Don't get excited about the fact that we've got a deal. It was only a deal to kick the can down the road until the end of January. We're going to have the same problem again at the end of January. So make sure you're anticipating the life around you and what's going on. Number two, be aware of everything around you. So anticipate it, be aware of it. You can't anticipate it if you aren't aware of it. Be here now. Understand, we aren't in control of a lot of things. What can you control? Focus on the things that you can control. Focus on the things that you have influence over right here, right now, and don't let the other stuff get to you. Okay? Once you know what's going to happen, or you're anticipating what's going to happen, you're aware of all your surroundings, now you can say, okay, what can I do about it? Focus on what you can do about it. Okay? Number four, stay calm. That's that book, The Unthinkable. I just finished reading it. One of the best books I've ever read on the subject. I think I have it right over here in my stash, my box of books that I've just finished reading. So this is one of the best books that I've read on understanding your own psychology in the event of what happens in a disaster situation. Look at all my tabs and highlights. I mean, just a great, great book. Help you to understand training, awareness, making sure that things become habitual. What can you do so that you have an autonomic reflex rather than getting frozen and trying to think about what am I going to do next? Being able to evaluate the situation, do the next right thing. So that's what that training does. It puts you into a series of, I now have to do this, then this, then this, okay? There's a reason why the Army had us put on blindfolds and field strip our M16s and reassemble them blindfolded in less than 1 minute. Because you want it to become autonomic. You want your body memory sensors to say, this is how I do this. These are the next steps. So I always know what the next step is. I'm anticipating it. Have what you need. Anticipate what you're going to need. And that's going to get into this last chapter when we talk about timelines, okay? Don't get hung up on the fact that you are in one point of the timeline, because remember, there's going to be there's called left of bang, bang, and right of bang. So left of bang is where we are right now. We're left of SHTF. Bang is SHTF. Then you're going to have the fight or flight. You're going to have the freeze. You're going to have the disavowalment of what's going on. Then you're going to have cognition. All those different things are going to happen that first, I'm going to say 72 to 96 hours, okay? You want to have your head about you so that you know what's going on and you know what the next steps are. So if that's the case and you've thought out this entire timeline, think of what you're going to need throughout the entire timeline. Don't just focus on a bug out bag. Focus on what are you going to do when you get where you're going. How are you going to cure your wood? Because remember, unless it's cured for at least a year, it's going to smoke to high heaven. And that's not going to do you that much good, right? So you want to make sure that you're thinking through the entire process. And then as you think through the whole process and you say, what do I need to make this happen? Well, I need this. And not only do I need that, but I also need this. And so then you start having a list of what are the stuff you need. Skills, knowledge, abilities, and tools, okay? So those are the things you want to make a list of as you do your entire timeline analysis. Make use of what you have now and practice using what you have now. So many people, there was a guy just recently, he was an innocent bystander and he saw a carjacking. Guy got into the car, okay, and basically hit a woman, knocked her out or something to steal her car. And a good Samaritan who had concealed carry pulled his weapon and shot at the guy. I think he shot like 8 shots. Did not hit the guy once. So what did the guy do who was stealing the car? He backed the car up and ran over the Good Samaritan and killed him. Your tool does you no good if you can't use it. So make sure whatever tool it is, and like I said earlier, your tourniquet, if you haven't put a tourniquet on yourself to know how much it hurts and that you're still two cranks away from stopping arterial blood flow, it's not going to do any good. Now, practice putting on a splint. Practice, why do you have to have two different splints for a fractured clavicle or collarbone? Okay, start looking at those things. Practice them. Become aware of what you need. And then finally, do what is necessary. And some of that may not be pleasant, to be totally honest with you. So that's his copyrighted 10 things that he thinks are absolutely essential. Let's go through those again. I think he's absolutely spot on. Anticipate, be aware, be here now, stay calm, evaluate, do the next right thing, take control, have what you need, use what you have, and do what is necessary. Okay, very simple. Very good rules to follow. Chapter 30, Post-World War III, Adaptation and Recovery. As soon as the fighting stopped, people crept out of their holes and started life all over again. A Soviet war correspondent in Berlin in 1945. Yeah, we become children of Hollywood, okay? I'm reading a fantastic book right now. Let me look it up. Let me see, recent orders, nuclear. I wish I could remember. My mind isn't anywhere like it was 140 years ago. After the Flash. After the Flash by Mark Allen Rush. Great book. Totally different from Annie Jacobson's book. Okay, Annie Jacobson subscribes to the TTAPs, and that's headed by Carl Sagan. He was a pacifist, a big pacifist, and so he created this theory that if everybody used surface bursts, that those surface bursts would cause so much fallout to ascend into the sky, so much burnt stuff, smoke, and everything else that would blow that the sun wouldn't be able to reach the Earth. It would cause catastrophic damage, and we would be in a Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome, for the rest of the eternity. Whereas in reality, this guy is talking from somebody who knows what he's talking about, and he says, no. Take a look at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The maximum effect of a nuclear bomb, of a fission bomb, is to have it detonate above the Earth, a couple thousand feet above the Earth, like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's going to have immediate alpha, beta, gamma, and X-rays that are going to have immediate radiation, but it's not going to have any long-term fallout. Okay. Whereas Carl Sagan says, no, they're probably going to use the less effective explosion of a surface burst, which, however, produces far more radioactive fallout. Here's an example. Take a look at the fallout patterns. And the one thing I love about his book is he's got links, government studies, all these experiments that have been done, all the nuclear test experiments and everything else. I mean, he has documented it to the max. And he says, take a look at the fallout. There are pictures of completely clean streets in Hiroshima and Nagasaki within 30 days after the bomb exploded. Why? Because they were air bursts. And so that residual radiation was gone within 24 hours. Okay, and they were able to go back in and safely start working and reconstructing. Compare that to Chernobyl or Fukushima, which were both basically a controlled nuclear explosion at the surface burst, okay? And so now you have the fallout, and they have to put these domes over them. They have to protect everything. So that's the difference between an air burst and a surface burst. So Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Now, afterwards, thriving cities, Fukushima and Chernobyl, still irradiated. Okay, that's the main difference between the two. KP Heathen, how are you? Good evening. L Dog, that's a new one. Good evening. Welcome. Okay. And then he talks about perpetual war, like 1984. And then he talks about a new beginning. Technology is the sharp sword of the modern age. President Xi Jinping. So, here's how I see it happening. And I think that A. American is right. We're going to see markets develop. And so when we talk about barter, okay, there are these people who have come onto the scene into the preparedness world in the last, I'm going to say probably since Y2K, okay? So we've had a new generation of people come in since Y2K, especially during the cough shutdown, lockdown. And people have come up with all these theories. And so make sure you have 192 BIC lighters so you can trade them away for antibiotics. I'm looking at my Jace case. So you can have antibiotics available to you and all these other things. So question number one is, and this is probably getting higher because of the threats that we're seeing. But the last I checked, less than 7% of the population is preparing for something to happen and can last even a week, okay? Maybe that might be up. Let's give it 10%, okay? So now we're going to say 10% of the people are preparing. If they're following this advice, 1/10 of the population has 192 BIC lighters. And they are going to be willing to trade that BIC lighter for your BIC lighter because you're preparing the same thing that they are, right? This fantastic list of barterable items that you're going to trade with each other. Well, who's saving the antibiotics, the Jace cases, and the contingency medical cases? Who's doing the skills? Who's learning how to reload ammunition? Who's learning how to garden effectively and cook? Who's learning how to use biomass briquettes and make them so that people can have something to heat their homes or something to heat their food? Start thinking about all those different kinds of things. And because I think that, if you read Soko Begovich's studies, or the things he wrote about the war in Bosnia, his year in hell, my life in Bosnia during the Bosnian Civil War. Same thing, Venezuela prepper also wrote a lot about it. Manny Ferfalaguirre has written about it with the financial collapse in Argentina. So there's all these people who have lived through all these events in the past 30 years, right? And we should be able to learn from them. For example, Selko talks about a guy who, thank God, he had an ounce of gold because his wife came down with a disease, an infection, and the only way that he was able to get the regimen of antibiotics for his wife was it cost him 1 ounce of gold to this guy who had the antibiotics. But back to what I was talking about, if only 10% of us are preparing, that, and all of us have the same things that we're saving to barter with other people, then where are we going to get the stuff we need? Because the other 90% aren't going to have it. So now we look at the complexities of barter, if we take a look at that timeline, okay? So let's say that I want, I'm going to say I want doxycycline, okay? And so I find a guy who has doxycycline, but in order to get the doxycycline, right, he wants a goat, okay? I don't have a goat. So now I got to go find out, how can I get a goat? So now I have to go to another guy, and I find a guy who has a goat and he wants to get rid of it. Well, he wants 150 gallons of gas for that goat. Okay, now in order to get the goat, in order to get the doxycycline, I've got to come up with 150 gallons of gas. Well, I find one guy with 80 gallons of gas. I find another guy with 70 gallons of gas. The guy with 80 gallons of gas wants 2 weeks worth of freeze-dried foods. The guy with 70 gallons of gas wants an ounce of gold. Now, see how complicated this is getting? I have to now make these two transactions to get um, the gas. Then I'd take the gas to get the goat. Then I'd take the goat to go get the doxycycline. That's my opinion of how barter is really going to work in a post-apocalyptic world until we begin coalescing and forming markets. And so once we have the markets and everybody shows up with what it is that they have to trade, now we're going to have some sort of a common trade medium. Now, Selko talks about during the war in Bosnia, it was US dollars and euros and precious metals. Okay. Venezuela Prepper says everything was dollars or precious metals. Manny Ferfalaguirre says dollars, euros, and precious metals. So as we get into this stage where the markets are beginning to develop, you're going to want to have some sort of a common currency. Now, I don't know. They were willing to accept paper money in all three of those cases. Paper dollars or paper euros. I'm not going to predict whether paper dollars or paper euros are going to be worth anything in a post-apocalyptic world here in the U.S. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not going to say I'm not going to keep any because I don't know. I will keep some. And my opinion is I'm not going to have anything larger than a 20 because I'm not so sure other people are going to be able to make change. So I will have some dollars, and I'll be able to purchase what it is that I need to do should I have to use those. But what is going to be used as the common medium in a market? Food. I think food's going to be the most in-demand thing. I think that 90% of the population has not planned for a post-apocalyptic world, and they're going to starve to death at the end of starving to death by the end of day 3, day 4. Probably by the end of the first month, we're going to see a very large fall off of people who don't have any food and didn't make any preparation for food. So I think food will be one of the most in-demand commodities. And then after food, because I think people recognize the importance of food. I don't think people recognize the importance of water. In my world, water is more important than food. So I would much rather store water than I would food. But I think that for the untrained masses, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be they want food first and then water. And let me tell you something. This is where defense comes in. There is nothing in the world as formidable as a parent who thinks you have food and is watching his children starve. Okay? Parents will do anything, I mean anything, to relieve pain, especially hunger, in their children. So that's where you're going to be called upon to make some of those tough moral decisions. And I'm not going to tell you which way to go. I will tell you I can tell you my belief. Okay. First off, I would encourage you to study Greek, Koine Greek. And then I would also encourage you to study ancient Hebrew. Because if you can do that, then you're going to have a better understanding of the scriptures. We continue to misinterpret one scripture. And it does not say thou shalt not kill. It says thou shalt not murder. So that is take a life without a purpose. Okay. Because remember, there's 613 laws or commandments in the Old Testament. I think it's 613, of which like 318 carry a death penalty. So you can't tell me that you can have a religious death penalty and have a commandment of thou shalt not kill. Somebody has to do the execution. Somebody has to do the killing. Take a look at David and his fighting against all of the surrounding tribes and groups that he fought against. Take a look at, and the acronym you can use here is a big purple grape. So A is Assyria, B, big, is Babylon, purple, P, Persia, grape, G is Greece, and then R is Rome. So those are the major powers that occupied Israel over the course of 4,000 years, 3,000 or 4,000 years. Of course, you can always start off with Egypt. Okay, they voluntarily entered into slavery in Egypt, but so study that and learn the morality and Where do you stand on making some of those tough moral decisions? Uh, Here in Central Texas, an ounce of gold will buy you a cow. About $4,000 right now. Yeah, $4,000 an ounce. You ain't kidding. And there was a time during the drought. Um, so everywhere else in the U.S. except for Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Wyoming, right? Everywhere else, they measure number of cattle per acre. Here in the desert Southwest, we measure number of acres per cow. Okay, because food is so sparse that you may not be able to have more than say 5 cattle on 100 acres. So that's why you have some of these humongous farms. Is because of the lack of. Good question, Utah Mike. Can we use canned spam as a currency? I absolutely. If you watch my pantry haul videos, you will see that probably twice a month, maybe 3-4 times a month, I pick up a can of SpaghettiOs or beef ravioli or spaghetti and meatballs. One of the Chef Boyardee. I usually get the Walmart equivalent or the HEB, which is our grocery store here, equivalent. But I pick up a can of some sort, $1 meal of spaghetti and meatballs or spam or something, Vienna sausage. Yes, absolutely. I think those are going to be the things that you can use as a barterable material. And those are because it's going to serve two purposes. It can feed people and it also can be used as a medium of exchange. Now, here's something that you have to think about. Can you purchase labor by offering to feed the person and their family? Okay, so let's say guy comes up, he says, hey, my family and I are starving. It's me, my wife, and 2 kids. Can you help us? I say, sure. I tell you what I'll do. I will give you 1 meal for every hour you guard my property and keep other people from coming on. Okay, so let's say it's 12 hours. So what happens if that's the agreement? I feed his family 1 meal per hour. Okay, well that's 12 meals, 12 hours. Well, there's 4 people. That's 3 meals a day. That kind of works out, right? So yes. So what can you do? That's one of the wonderful things I'm studying about ramen. Is hello, Sumi, welcome. Treat is basically Armour's version of Spam. So it's another competitive manufacturing company, and they do the same thing, just call it a different name. Okay, so Pete's telling me that where he is, and it's about an hour up the road from me, it's about 2 to 3 cows per 20 acres. So we're talking 8 to 10 acres per cow. So like I said, everywhere else it's cattle per acre. Here it's acres per cow. So I don't know about North Texas, but yeah, probably up in the grasslands and the Panhandle. Now in Northeast Texas, yes, in the piney woods in that area, yeah, they have. It's a lot more fertile. It's a lot more green, and I'm sure that if you get up around Dallas, right? What was the name of that place where they filmed Dallas? Anyhow, yeah, I'm sure that they probably have 3 or 4 cattle per acre, so it's quite different. Okay, so I think that's it. Don't forget, get your copy of 150 Survival Secrets, and I think that will do you extremely well. We'll be starting that next week. Let's plan on trying to get the first 10 done next. Let me ask you a question. Next week is basically a holiday week. So we have Thanksgiving next week. Do y'all still want to do, let's say, the first 10 chapters or first 10 tips on this one next week? Or do you want to take a week off and just have a week where we can celebrate Thanksgiving and the week? I'll look for your answers here real quick, and we'll see if there's any recommendations. So I saw that in Wyoming, it's one pair per, I think it said 20 acres. So about 10 acres per cow. Oh, for 10 acres. So about 5 acres per cow. Yeah, so some of the things that I like to have on a recurring basis on my subscribe and save, I alternate these four. So I get one of them every month. So that means I get 3 a year. I get raw ground beef. I get raw ground beef patties. I get chicken tenders, raw chicken tenders, and then I get raw beef cubes. So I get one of those, 2 pounds of those every month, but they're on a rotation. So I get 3 of those per year. I like to get 1 package of whole egg powder. Now, the difference between whole egg powder and scrambled egg powder. Whole egg powder is raw. So you can use it for baking, cooking. You can use it to make your own scrambled eggs if you want to. You can use it to dribble into your miso soup or into your ramen or to make an egg drop soup. Cannot do that with the scrambled eggs. With the scrambled eggs, they're pre-cooked. You're going to rehydrate those, and they just become scrambled eggs. That's the only thing you can do with it. Okay, everybody's saying meet next week, so we will. That's great. So I like to get one of those each time. When Thrive Life was in business, I tried to get 1 can of tomatoes and 1 can of green onions every week. So I'm still doing, or every month, I'm sorry. And then a meat product and a cheese product every month. I'm still doing green onions, but I'm doing that from Nature Valley, and that's on a subscribe and save that I have with Amazon. So I've kind of replaced a lot of the Thrive Life stuff that I did. So I try to get a meat. I try to get powdered eggs, powdered milk probably every other month. I try to get either an oil or a tallow or bacon up or Crisco, some sort of a cooking oil medium fat. I try to get one of those at least once a month. I try to get honey on a regular basis. I try to get pure maple syrup on a regular basis. And then what's the other one I try to get on a regular basis? Cream of mushroom soup, cream of tomato soup, or tomato soup, cream of chicken soup, those kinds of staples. Okay. Now I'm getting the vegetables to put into my ramen and ramen. So I'm really stocking up on ramen. I think that's going to be another one. If you can get the freeze-dried shrimp or the canned shrimp or the canned tuna, canned trout, clams, mussels, all those little bitty cans, those become fantastic additions into a cup of ramen. You can get the freeze-dried vegetables, the freeze-dried mushrooms, some miso powder. You can turn that into a fantastic meal. And it's going to be a lot easier and hopefully a lot easier on your fuel consumption because all you have to do is boil water. So I bought this table. What I want to do is I want to take several different types of fuel and go out in the backyard. And I'm going to put my Kelly kettle out there. And I want to see how long it takes me to boil water in each of the different mediums of heat. And then hopefully I'll be able to tell you which one appears to be the most fuel efficient way to boil water in a post-apocalyptic world. So we'll see how that comes along. Okay, so I will see you next week. The book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. Don't forget also that our fiction book, we're not going to do it until December, the last Thursday in December, but we're going to be picking up with book 4 of America Overrun, The Drifters, by our friend John Grammer. So, and he will probably join us with that book review as well, in case you have any questions on it. So I will put a link to this book in the show notes. I'll put a link to this book in the show notes, and then I will see you all here next Monday. Please remember, we're all in this together, so we can come out the other side together. Please and thank you. for being nice, polite, kind, and respectful to each other. North Carolina Farmer, good evening. Good to see you. Thank you for being such a great group. Thank you for taking care of each other in the chat, and being respectful and helping each other out. I can't tell you what that means to me. Thank you so much that you do that. For those of you who are here for the first time, I hope you got something out of this. I hope you will come back and join us on a regular basis. After you've been here a couple times, we'll probably turn you into a blue wrench as well, into a moderator. And that's how we keep people straight is, we don't tolerate any poo-poo. So remember, the only way we're going to get through this is together, because togetherness is the key. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.